So, friends, here we are. It's so funny how this sanctuary fills up very late. If you come in here a little bit early, you think you are alone. And if we could just picture all of our beloveds that are online, we would be overflowing. And I love that thought. I know a lot of spiritual communities have really, run people through the ringer for not physically coming back. But we know that the future is changing, right? I mean, everything is different. And so we want to be a part of honoring everyone right where they are, right? And just knowing that it's all divine appointments. And anyway, if you want to ask me sometime an insight someone very cool had into the seats that are open, I'll let you know. But it's pretty cool. I want to just thank the people that offered to do this $2,000 matching contribution. I know it's such a big deal, right? Like, whoa, some people are like ready to get us excited. So even if it's you can give $5 or you can up your monthly offering by $5, $10, $20, or maybe you have something else to match. If you have a matching one, you can still see Mark. But let's see ourselves getting that 2,000 and over so that the whole contribution comes in. And if you haven't gotten one of these yet, there's a little scan card and information on the back, but these flyers, I believe, are by the door, so you can get that. And then I would just want to do a little ask. We have a whole bunch of special people in the house today. You can't say someone, but we have someone that has given a lot of her life. If you know anything about working for a ministry, it's like no other job. It's not a job, really. It's a service. Because if you last for very long, it's because it wasn't a job, and it's because you gave it your heart. And Joan Miller is in the office today, and she was the office manager for years and years and years. And so I'm just glad to have you guys in the house. I'm not going to cry, but I'm glad you're here. And Joan knows what it's like to have help, because she would get like nuts and treats and snacks, and she would lure people into the office to help her. And the reason I bring this up today is that some of our volunteers that have been amazing office in the house volunteers during the week have medical things or other things going on. We're holding 2 of our beloveds in prayer, and they serve in other ways that are major, but they can't come in during the week anymore. And so we're looking for some volunteers, 1 to 3 people that would make a commitment to come either once a week or once a month. And it would be Tuesdays or Wednesdays between the hours of 9 and 4 p.m. So if you or you know someone who might be able to do that, or you have a friend you'd want to come with, and you could serve for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, I would like just to launch that request and vision fulfilled on behalf of Mark Livingston and our whole staff team in the office, because we have lots of great things that we can do if they get off the rainy day, a volunteers here list, and get into someone else's heart. So thank you for considering that. It is done, isn't it? Okay. So we are on the last official week. Next week we have a fun Sunday where we're going to just dive into some deeper kind of concepts and ideas from this book called Everything Belongs by Richard Rohr. If you don't know of Richard Rohr, he's a contemplative teacher of today. He is a Franciscan, which is of the Catholic order, and he runs a retreat center, meditation contemplative center out west. He is also well, let's just say that we're grateful that he's here on the planet right now. From his own words, we don't know how much longer he's going to be here, because he's moving through some wellness things. But we're just grateful that we're studying him while he's here, and grateful for all the work that he's done. He really brings East and West together, and he really brings the height of Christianity into the forefront of conversation with a very diverse group of people, which clearly, with everything going on in the world today, it's important to begin to more deeply understand each other, yeah? And these conversations where we can get to the heart of what we have in common and what's important, is just critical for life on this planet and for world religions and for nations. So I just honor his work, and I would just ask that we take a moment of silence to just bless him, bless his work, and bless his body, and bless his absolute wholeness. Richard Rohr from the center of Unity Village, from the space of silent unity, we acknowledge your work. We acknowledge your passion. We acknowledge your prophecy. And we acknowledge the evolution of the teachings of the Christ through you. And so it is. Amen. So, and I don't think you have to grow up Catholic to appreciate him, but next Sunday we're going to do a little bit like on tidbits and triggers. So some of you, especially that grew up in Unity, might have some parts you didn't appreciate about this book. And he has some humanness in here, right? So he has some things that he says, like he says a little rant about vegetarians, and like talks about how that can be interpreted or experienced if you're not one. And for some people that can be like, and then he talks about new thoughty people and talks about how we could benefit by being a little more grounded. But next Sunday, Reverend Brenda Erin is going to be here. She's our minister in the virtual sanctuary, and she's going to be here, and we're going to just dive into some more of this juicy, fun stuff, right? The parts that you wanted me to share from this book that I didn't share, we're getting those requests from our small groups this week, and then anything that triggered you or irked you. When I read those parts, I just actually laughed. Like, with a good comedian, like when you see a good comedian, you laugh at yourself, you laugh at your own kind. And I was like, so funny that he said that about vegetarians. I'm a cheater now, so I can't really claim that at this moment in time, but I got a kick out of it. And it's a good thing to notice if it triggers you. But there were a couple of chapters that were just so rich, so full, that you had to pick and choose, right? There was no way to get all of it in. So we're going to stick with this last section today, and I just want to share a bit about it. When we started the service today, Bethany talked about the kids, right? And the kids, did I drop a Post-it note somewhere? It's just running away from me. It's okay, I got it. But she was talking about the kids and that beginner's mind. We call it beginner's mind, and it's called something in just about every religion. But it's the mind where you see the wows, you see what is amazing, you awaken to the present moment, and you see things differently. We all know what that's like, right? But so often we get into what is normal in life. I used to get in trouble when I was living in Colorado and Denver years ago. I was never much of a go out to the bar kind of girl. I liked more deep conversations, right? I didn't like the group thing. And if there was like loud stuff and you couldn't talk and you're just sitting there with a drink, not talking, and what are you doing? I was like, if I can talk, then. So I would get a little bit in trouble. I remember one time I was at this Grateful Dead bar that was walking distance from my house, real cool little dive bar. And I was there with some girlfriends, and we sat up at the bar, and there was a guy sitting next to me, and he was having a drink, and I just started up a conversation. And after just a few minutes of hearing me, he literally was like, I'm just going to go sit somewhere else. Could you not do this here? Because I come here to forget about all that. And I was just amazed. I was like, really? Because we're alive right now. And we act like this isn't just amazing. And he was just like, yeah, I probably, there have rarely been times that I've so turned someone off that they just, literally he was just like, you disgust me, and I can't handle this conversation. But really probably what was happening inside was a lot of pain. He's didn't have a positive experience of thinking about what is beyond the physical, right? Who knows what was going on for him? But how often do we walk around carrying big stuff, right? And we either didn't have the growing up, the family system, whatever it is, to learn how to process it, or we were told we weren't supposed to ask the questions, or We were just never introduced to the amazing miracle of life that is all around us in every moment. And some people need substance or need things that alter their minds to get into that. But that's just an artificial way, right, to dive into what is always here. There is always, in every moment, an opportunity to just like stand in awe of the moment and to see it entirely different. And that's what beginner's mind does for us. That's what we get when we just dive in to a different type of experience of what it can be like to be alive. And everything changes, but we don't always get there. One reason is just because we're here on the planet for quite a while. My daughter asked me how long we'd been in this house that we were in. I remember moving here and thinking, I sure hope I like this church because I'm scared to death of buying a house. I knew that people said you had to have it for 2 years. If you don't have it for 2 years, you make a very poor financial decision. And I was like, I hope I like them and I hope they like me and I can get through at least 2 years. So I haven't messed up my life by getting a house. But she asks, like, how long have we been in the house? How many? And then she's like, how many months have we been in the house? So we do the math equation. How many weeks have we been in the house? We do the math equation. How many minutes have you been in the house? Like, how many mornings have you been in the house? Lots of math equations. And I was like, that's a lot of mornings I've woken up in this house. Like 12 years, right? Times, well, we realized we didn't have to do times 12 months, times 30, 31 days. Yeah, we could have done times 52. We did all those things. But it's a lot of mornings. Of course, we fall asleep, right? It's a lot of mornings to just lift your body out of a bed, look around a room, and start walking somewhere, put something in your mouth, walk out the door. Of course, people fall asleep, right? But it's the spiritual practice that helps us wake up. Now, Richard Rohr in this section talks about the master teacher, Jesus the Christ, and Jesus as a prophet, and talks about how the prophet shakes things up, right? A lot of times people want Jesus the king, the powerful one, right? But he talks about Jesus the prophet, and Jesus the prophet is a disruptor. Jesus the prophet is the one that shakes things up a little bit, that kind of sits next to you in the bar and goes like, you're alive, isn't that incredible? Like, you have eyeballs and you're looking at me through them. Like, you guys got here on the same day that these guys got here. And I bet when you look around the sanctuary, you don't see a ton of familiar faces, but you all sat right next to each other on the same day. It's insane. Like, really? It's someone's first day here, and they're like, where am I? This was here the whole time. I didn't know this was here, right? I just moved back to town, and she's here. How cool, we're here. There is a world around us, a world in front of us, and a world within us if we're willing to breathe into each brand new baby moment and let it be original. That we can see there is a mystical happening. That we can see that God is alive and well as the grand overall design of life, if we're willing to say yes. So Richard Rohr talks about the times in life where we wake up, because a lot of times we need something, often traumatic or difficult, to wake us up, right? We're not all born just going, whoa, whoa. Well, actually, I think we are. Actually. Right, I think we're born like that. But then we fall asleep again. And that's okay, that's the human condition. But he talks about the role of religion and the role of the prophet. The prophet is to shake things up. And he says the role of religion can sometimes serve in great ways, but it can also sometimes help indoctrinate us into a system of falling asleep, as can even psychology and therapy. If anyone's ever been on antidepressant medication, isn't that kind of funny to say, if anyone's ever been on antidepressant medication? We're not going to do hands. If anyone's ever been on antidepressant medication, what's the one thing you commit to doing while you go on medication? Therapy, right? Self-learning. Learn about yourself, deepen your spiritual practice. Take that time as a little bit of a time of reprieve that, okay, now I have some space to process some big stuff. There was big stuff going on, so much that I had to segment it out and peel it like an onion. I couldn't do it all at once. So now that I've got a little breathing space, how can I support myself? Get into some groups, read some books, do some deeper learning, do some deeper healing work, right? And complement it with that. But otherwise, what can it do? Otherwise, it can just keep shutting us down, right? It's like, well, don't feel that. Okay, now you don't feel that. That's okay. Well, now do this. Go to this therapist so you can't feel that, so that you can start functioning in a dysfunctional society. Go to church so that you can just maintain the status quo, so that you can deal with an ungodly world, with ungodly things happening, and that you can be functional in something that's dysfunctional. Bill Richard Rohr rightly calls out Jesus and says that is not what he came here to say or to do. He disrupted the system, and he said, no, let's not get comfortable. Let's take up ourselves, our beings, our spirits, and let us walk. Let's heal, let's evolve. Let's actually bring God to the systems and call them higher. And let's go higher to find out how to function spiritually within what can be in the human dysfunctional. So I want to share part of his readings today. He talks about our awakening, and the tendency in the human condition is when we have these moments to be like, when we have these moments of discomfort, because he talks about death, and he talks about how a lot of times when we experience death, that's the biggest disruptor, right? It shakes everything up. Like we walk around like we're all going to be here next Sunday. One of our beloveds, who has been a beloved for so long here at Unity Village Chapel, has entered hospice. I'm going to share this so some of you that maybe know this family can reach out to them. But our beautiful Hayden elder is ready to be loved by all of us. If you don't know Hayden, start talking to the people next to you, because there's a Hayden somewhere. Oh, and the stories, I still want to get one firsthand story from him, because it sounded like a good one, like a really good one. But Lou and Hayden Elder are walking through a sacred time right now. So we're holding them in light and holding him in prayer. But it's those things where all of a sudden life is different. And you can say this too shall pass, but it can't go back, right? It can't go back. It's like this too shall maybe get a little more comfortable being uncomfortable. But my dad just lifted off. It's not going to pass. It's not ever going to be gone. It's not ever going to go back, right? It is forever different and rearranging itself. And sure, there will be other beautiful things. There will be shifts. But there's no Band-Aid that's going to make it better. It's uncomfortable. And we walk around sometimes forgetting that in an instant things can change. But it gives us a different view of life and a different experience of life. And what he says about that time in life, he calls it, well, he says some native people he calls it liminal space. Some native people call it crazy time. Crazy time. I like that personally. It's a time where nothing looks like what we're used to. Like the time after the death of someone you love. I believe that is uniquely the work of religion, to lead us into crazy time. He talks about how often we want to wake up, like we want to heal our stuff, we want to grow, we want to transform. But he says we can't just want to do it. He said we keep praying that our illusions will fall away. God erodes them from many sides, hoping they will fall, but we often remain trapped in what we call normalcy, the way things are. Life becomes problem solving, fixing, explaining, taking sides with winners and losers. It can be a pretty circular and even nonsensical existence. Can you feel that? It can be a pretty circular and nonsensical existence. That's what the guy at the dead bar thought I was just trying to lead him into. Like, hey, let's talk about the nonsensical circular existence. And he was like, let me just vomit somewhere else. And I was like, no, you talk about it for a second and you go through a portal. And it's really cool there. It's actually where you're trying to go, but in a different way. We have to allow ourselves to be drawn into sacred space, he says. All transformation takes place there. We have to move out of business as usual and remain on the threshold, where we are betwixt and between. There, the old world is left behind, but we're not sure of the new one yet. That's a good space, he says. Get there often and stay there as long as you can by whatever means possible. Deep breath, inhale, exhale. I mean, what do we think about that? Get there often and stay there as long as you can by whatever means possible. That's what Bethany's mom did when she started painting and pulled that spiritual gift right out of the ethers and spent 9 months painting and painting and painting like it was all she had to do on the planet. And if you go to the Fillmore Cafe after the service or to the Christmas event, you will be floored at what you see. Stay there as long as you can. It's not what we teach in the human condition, is it? We teach, get on some medication, go to a therapist, find a new church, do whatever you can to get your booty out of that place and start being productive. Be productive. Be normal. Get it together. We don't even have space. If I ever become a millionaire, one of the things I'm going to start is a little retreat space called Auntie-M's. And I don't know if it'll be for every age or just like everyone up to 40, but it's a place where you can check in from like 1 to 9 months just to like check in and redirect your life. Like everything's taken care of, your bills are paid, you want to make a life change, you want to get a new job, you want to just think, you want to just heal, whatever, come here and do it. That's what my aunt was for me. Come to my house just to take the pressure off, be in liminal space. Welcome to Crazy Time. I won't call it Crazy Time. I'll call it Auntie-M's. Crazy Town might be a better word for it, though, a better title. Richard Rohr says, it's the realm where God can best get at us because we're out of the way. I like to say we're in the way. We put everything in the way so we can become the way. He says, in the sacred space, the old world is able to fall apart. Can you feel that? Like who feels like they're in an income bracket, an age bracket, a responsibility bracket, whatever it is, that you can't afford to fall apart? Do you see what I'm saying? Like there have been times I have fallen apart, but the outside can't fall apart. Because, you know what, I'm not willing to like go into the debt and then rebuild and climb back up the mountain. So it's like, we better keep wobbling through this because I know what's on the other side, right? I don't get to fall apart. And I've had pity parties about that before. I think that's why I have such good friends. Because you can crumble and they keep your life going while you're just like on the stretcher. It's like the healing of Jesus when his friends, not the healing of Jesus, the healing Jesus did when his friends took the paraplegic, right? And carried him and then lowered him down. They couldn't get him in front of Jesus. They wanted him to have the healing. So it's like, they lowered him down. Let me put him right in front of you. And Jesus healed him. If we don't find liminal space in our lives, we start idealizing normalcy. Is anyone else a little afraid of normalcy? If you're in unity, I think you have a little resistance to normalcy. Because you were able to take some steps that took courage and that broke out of the norm. Because rarely is someone born into unity. It happens, but it's rare. People usually have to go through quite a bit of life, and they have to do quite a bit of listening and trusting themselves to go, this is what I'm getting. I'm getting this, and I'm going to follow it, and I can trust that voice. He says, we end up believing that normalcy, that this is the only reality, and our lives shrivel. And he says we're here really to follow the path of the prophet, to bring God consciousness to the planet, to bring it here. He says that you'll start noticing some things happen when you start living the spiritual life, the spiritual path. And you may not fit in. He says there is probably no one more truly radical than real persons of prayer, because they are beholden to no ideology or economic system, but only to God. Both church and state are honestly threatened by true mystics. They can't be bought off because their rewards are elsewhere. For a while, this reshuffling of normalcy may leave us out of center askew, because we're not going to find our comfort in the external. We have to build it within. You may find yourself a man or a woman without a country. That's where I want you, so that you can find the country of God. Our old country doesn't make sense. We can't buy it anymore. We can't believe it. We can't worship it as we are trained to do. Actually, this pattern of falling apart precedes every transition to a new level of faith. If one is not prepared to live in that temporary chaos, to hold the necessary anxiety that chaos entails, one never moves to deeper levels of faith or prayer or relationship with God. Whenever he says we are led out of normalcy into sacred space, it's going to feel like suffering. It's letting go of what we're used to, and that causes suffering. But part of us always has to die. If that readiness isn't there, we won't enter into sacred space. The prophet leads us into sacred space by showing us the insufficiency of the old order. The role of the priest is to teach us how to live in the new realm. In this new realm, he says, everything belongs. Namaste.